Moving our focus specifically to the forecast energy consumption of 5G and its impact upon climate and the environment, I'm going to introduce Miguel Coma. Miguel is an engineer in electronics and telecommunications. He spent 2 decades working in the ICT sector before starting his research on its impact on climate, environment and health. He collaborates with international experts in engineering, physics, biology, environmental science and philosophy. And he writes, speaks and consults specifically about 5G wireless technologies. So Miguel, over to you.
Thank you, Mike. And thank you, Katie, for this fantastic introduction. Now, I would like to focus more on 5G specifically and its impact. Next slide, please, Mike. So 5G, is it a myth? Actually, the mobile industry is in search of new markets, as you can imagine, and it's trying to find new ways of using its new technology. However, 4G already suits all current and foreseeable uses, and that is demonstrated by several surveys, customer surveys, as well as analysis. 5G will not change anything in consumers' daily lives. That is a statement made even by mobile operators themselves. And 5G will not solve white spots either, which are those areas where the signal is poor or inexistent. Last but not least, 5G is sometimes claimed to be an enabler to reduce carbon emissions. Well, this is also a myth that you will see is totally contradicted by the amount of energy that it will require. Next slide, please. So what 5G is actually useful to is the industry 4.0, for which the 5G's very low latency and high reliability is quite an interesting technology, where the industry will be able to improve the productivity of their manufacturing plants. However, this is only the case for a very small amount of industries, of very large, small industries, but a very small number. And the main examples in the EU are coke and petroleum products, motor vehicles, tobacco and transport equipments mainly. But these do not actually require large-scale public networks. They could perfectly use private networks which are installed specifically on their sites. So we'll see next slide, please, Mike. Thank you. So today, this is an overview of what the digital world is consuming today in terms of electricity. So I will walk you through several slides, which all are based on one study. It's just one study. There are more, of course, that try to assess today's energy consumption and predictions for the future. But this one is quite recent and from 2019. So today's consumption is, as you can see, divided into 3 main areas: networks, user devices, and data centers. The main energy guzzler are user devices today. And as you can see, there are 2 parts on each bar. The lower part represents the embodied energy that Katie has mentioned earlier. And the top part represents the consumption in terms of electricity of the device when it's on. Now, I must be more specific here, because complex devices such as smartphones and laptops, computers, use much more embedded energy than they consume electricity while they are used. So this is this graph shows an average over all user devices in the digital world, not the complex ones. On the left side, you can see networks. And one of the networks we are using daily is 4G. As you can see, it's quite significant already today. And on the right, you can see data centers. So, but what's striking me is that networks are already using more energy than data centers, which are often claimed to be the main energy guzzler on the internet. Next slide, please. So the rebound effect of 5G, Katie mentioned earlier, the Stevens paradox. And this is exactly what this will happen for 5G. In this study, you can see on the graph that mobile networks within the next decade will become the #1 energy guzzler among all networks. It will be using more energy than wired networks and Wi-Fi networks. Also, the industry itself so this is the Mobile Operators Association, the GSMA, already predicts that 5G area operators could face up to 2 to 3 times higher energy costs versus 4G. Next slide, please. So if we compare 2020 with 2030's predictions, due to the explosion in traffic, we would end up with networks being the #1 consumer of electricity compared to user devices, which would be even lower, and data centers, which also show a major increase. But still, networks are the #1 here, with an increase, 6-fold increase overall. And if we look just at mobile networks, from 4G to 5G, we would have a 10-fold increase. So this 5G includes, of course, also the 4G antennas that will remain, and the 3G in case they are not decommissioned quickly. And there you can see the small box there stating UK is the electricity consumption, the annual electricity consumption of the UK, to give you some perspective. Next slide, please. So where does all this electricity go to? Well, this is today's situation with video streaming on existing 4G networks. Let me walk you through a journey of data of a mobile video, starting from the data center. The data center is represented by the gray area on this pie chart. So the data center is consuming a significant amount of energy. However, then I will just walk you through clockwise on this pie chart. So if you go to the right, you see that tiny light blue stripe. It represents the international wired internet. So it's quite insignificant compared to data centers. However, if I go on to clockwise to the 4G network, and once the video data reaches your cell phone mast and needs to be emitted through the air down to your mobile phone, the 4G network is consuming the most of the energy by far. And then comes the smartphone 4G connection, which also consumes a lot just to receive the information and respond back to the data center. And then in the green area, you can see what it takes for the mobile phone to process the video data so that it can be displayed. Now, if we compare this video energy consumption, thank you, Mike, with virtual reality, reality for the same duration, so for an experience of 1 minute, let's say, or 5 minutes, would take 11 times more energy on the same network. and the 4G network is even taking a higher portion of the pie chart, as you can see. So, and today we already have about 66% of data on mobile networks that is taken by video traffic. And the forecast is that this will increase for sure, up to 77% in 2026. So to really give you the end-to-end view of what 5G would consume from cradle to grave, we have to start with the manufacturing of 5G. 5G will require manufacturing of smartphones. We are talking about billions of smartphones that will need to be manufactured. Also with new types of chips inside the smartphone, so that they can connect to the 5G technology, and no longer just to the 4G technologies. Then you have the Internet of Things. Of course, the 5G industry wants to connect billions of devices with its technology. So this also will require a lot of manufacturing. The networks themselves, of course, need to be built, millions of masts, and data centers will need to be expanded. Then comes the 5G uses. And so this is really the main consumer in the 5G equation. So I want you to focus on the top right picture, where you can see two of the most powerful nuclear reactors ever built. So this is a new technology. And on this recent site, there are two nuclear reactors making one large nuclear plant. What I have calculated from this study that is foreseeing a tremendous increase in energy consumption for 5G networks is that we will need 38 of those plants just to power 5G networks. And this is on top of the existing energy consumption of mobile networks today. If you don't like nuclear reactors, I can also propose you to use wind turbines. And on the bottom right there, you can see the largest wind turbine that has been ever built by mankind, and compared to the Eiffel Tower, the Chrysler Building, and the London Eye. And you would need 18,000 of those just to power the network, let alone the data centers and the devices that we use every day. And last but not least, we have, of course, e-waste that will be generated by 5G infrastructure. And if we just look at smartphones today, what we throw away each year represents the mass of 47 times the Eiffel Tower. And you must also know that within those smartphones, there's a lot of metal, precious metals and rare earths, and 16 metals are only recycled for less than 1% today. And this includes lithium, which we have seen earlier with Katie. So in terms of greenhouse gases, so far we focused on the electric consumption, but if we want to translate this into greenhouse gases, based on the current energy mix, on the current amount of greenhouse gases that is emitted when we produce electricity, we would need, we will emit through mobile networks about 550 megatons of CO2 equivalents. And this is also the amount, more or less, that would be generated by fixed networks. And data centers are even higher, while devices would reduce their emissions by applying different techniques of energy efficiency. So, because what I didn't mention is that this study I've taken as a basis is, according to the author, hugely optimistic in terms of energy efficiency evolutions. But overall, as you can see on the right there, the total CO2 equivalents that would be emitted in the atmosphere would be 1,670, which can be compared with aviation, which emitted only 900 megatons in 2018. So this is quite a significant amount of greenhouse gases we are talking about. So far, I mentioned 5G networks on Earth. Now, I would like also to complement this with 5G in space. So the plans that we have today from different organizations, the most famous one is SpaceX with its Starlink network, but there are other ones such as OneWeb, there's a Chinese operator as well, and Amazon. Overall, they all plans, they complete plans end up with over 100,000 low orbiting satellites. Well, this is 10 times more satellites than stars visible to the naked eye. So it's very clear for astronomers that there is a serious concern for their observations and the data that they are gathering based on ground telescopes, which play a major role. The future is not just about satellite telescopes. It would also impair the detection of large asteroids that is also based completely on ground observations from ground telescopes. Sorry. What's also striking me is that those Starlink satellites have a very short life, 5 to 6 years, which is comparable with a laptop computer, which means we will have to replace them over and over again and not new satellites. So this creates a dramatic increase in space debris over the Earth in low orbit, more specifically. And this creates a situation where we are already today, actually, is that a chain reaction could occur between those space debris and create a lot of collisions that could damage existing satellites and existing services such as meteorology, telecommunications, to name a few. And what's also very interesting, I think, is to know that only 1% of the debris surrounding the Earth are trackable. All the rest is totally untrackable. So we don't know where the debris are present. There is also a risk of death for people when a satellite re-enters the atmosphere, and this risk will, of course, increase with the amount of satellites that we will launch and that we will re-enter the atmosphere. Now, if we want to look at the impact on the atmosphere itself, both rocket launches as well as satellite re-entries create pollutants. There are different types of rocket fuels, that all cause an effect on the ozone layer. Alumina that is created when a satellite re-enters the atmosphere is also impacting the ozone layer. And all those fuels have a negative impact on the greenhouse effect. And this is to an extent where a study published in Nature magazine said that this effect could be comparable to aviation's effect, given the fact that we will have to launch thousands of satellites every year. Finally, also weather observations through satellites could be impaired due to the frequencies used by those satellites. So they will use millimeter waves, which also have a role in the observations due to their very specific frequency, and nature cannot change the frequencies it uses, such as the water vapor emits very specific frequencies that would be jammed by satellites, but also 5G networks on Earth, by the way. This could also impair and degrade the follow-up of global warming that we have to track very carefully. Yeah, this is the overview I wanted to give you. Thank you for your attention.